going to talk about the carrot and the stick, and I want you to hold on tight for this ride because so many of our approaches, particularly in the elementary schools across the nation and maybe even across the world, have really been about a carrot and the stick model. That is, when a child misbehaves, right? It's that stick part. Now, I'm not saying that people are using a stick. um, and then there's the reward for doing well and behaving appropriately. So let's talk about this for a moment. Many of us grew up in circumstances where when we did good things, when we did things that were right, when we pleased others, we were rewarded. Sometimes the reward was in personal time. Sometimes it was in exchange, like money, rewards. I mean, how many of us got money for good grades or, got a gift for doing something well? Grades is all, or like getting ice cream for doing good, getting good grades. Many of us have had that experience. And many of us have also had the experience that when we didn't do good things, when we were behaved inappropriately, when we got in trouble for talking or whatever, we would be punished. And the punishment might be timeout. The punishment might be things taken away from us. So that might be playground. That might be a special event that's happening, like a field trip, or maybe there's free time in the classroom, and so the child loses free time. And so it rests in the belief, this whole taking something away is withholding love. And it rests in the belief that if you feel bad enough, that you'll want to change, that the child will want to do differently next time. Now, this is where it goes a little haywire and why this is not a good strategy. First off, if I had the skill set to be able to articulate my needs in a way that was socially acceptable, then I would have done that. But see, I'm still learning self-regulation, and I was using that pencil. And she came and she took it not knowing that I was using it. So if I had the ability to be able to say, I'm still using that, I wasn't finished, then I would have done that. But because I'm developing my self-regulation skills, and that hiccup is what we call moving from a place of reactivity to responsiveness, is something that young children haven't clearly developed yet. And so as a child, if I see that I want that pencil and I haven't developed that hiccup yet, I'm going to grab that pencil out of her hand because I'm still using it. So if I would have had the skills and see, here's where this becomes an issue, because teachers say, well, she has done that or he has done that. Yes, but how many times have we been inconsistent in our approaches? I'm going to give you a good example that many people can understand is diets. So you know that the chocolate cake is not good for you. But how many times have you had the chocolate cake even though it's not good for you? So we have expectations of children's behavior for them to be on point 100% of the time or even 90% of the time. But they're still developing the skills to be able to identify their own feelings and needs and to be able to articulate them in socially acceptable ways. And then even further to work through the process of conflict resolution. So by sending a child to timeout, by withholding a playground time, by pulling a card or moving them from green light to yellow light, doesn't help the child develop skills. Not at all. And so one of the things that I talk about pretty extensively when I do in-person trainings is, let's think about this with mirror neurons that are developing by simply who we are in the presence of children, and how the young brain is really making those foundational connections for how they see the world. That when we treat children that way, what will they begin to believe is absolutely acceptable? So let me give you an example of this. If I was your administrator and you did not submit what needed to be submitted. And we had a staff meeting on that particular day that whatever was due, let's say reporting was due, something was due, and you did not have that done. And we're kind of a little annoyed by the fact that I was asking you that. So publicly now, I'm going to address the fact that you have not completed it. And let's just say, for example, I have a yellow card or a green card, and I have you walk across the group to change your card so that everyone is well aware that you did not complete the expected submissions, that you did not complete that. Now, right here is where teachers will tell me, well, I'm not a child. Well, here's the thing. The way the brain works is it doesn't matter whether you're 4 or you're 40. It doesn't matter. The brain is wiring up. It's firing up and it's wiring up. So if we make being demeaning to children acceptable, then the brain believes that that's an acceptable experience. If we make ridiculing children, withholding love, telling them that they can't have this if they don't do this, it doesn't first off teach them anything. But even further, it makes that as an acceptable thing to do in relationships. Again, we have to get rid of this perception that children should be treated differently than we treat one another. Because again, skills beget skills. Foundations become the way by which we live our life experiences. So if we want children to stop bullying, then we need to be emotionally responsive to the needs of one another in ways that model empathy, loving exchanges, experiences that are helpful and supportive. That's what we have to model. So when we tell children that they are doing something that is unacceptable in ways that are threatening, we're teaching them that that is an absolutely acceptable thing to do to others. So this is what's very difficult, because if you grew up in the experience where you feel that children should be punished for their behavior, then this is going to be hard. And my experience has been that punishment is not what children need, because it's not attention seeking, it's connection seeking. To have a responsive, loving adult who helps them be accountable. Now, I'm not talking about this wishy-washy experience and we're going to sing Kumbaya together. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is teaching children to have the foundations for identifying what it is that they need, to articulate their feelings, and to be able to engage in a responsive, respectful conversation. And see, all of that requires a whole lot of support and a whole lot of skills. But what I know for sure is that in our approaches of dealing with behavior by withholding love to get a child to feel bad so that they'll want to act right doesn't work. You might say that it does, but we have to talk about temperament for a moment. 50% of who we are is our temperament. And if you have more than one child, you understand what I mean by that. One child often has a very different temperament than the other child. And temperament is, sometimes the way people perceive this is, that the child was much more needy, or the child really was a go-getter, and, they would fall down and get back up and was no big deal, whereas the other child really needed to be held a little bit longer. Our temperament is 50% of who we are. And our life experiences create the other 50%. Okay. So every child is going to need something uniquely different. So there is a child who has a temperament, who is much more sensitive, let's say, for lack of a better word. So that child, you go, hey, not acceptable. Whew, the kid feels it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And that child will go home over the weekend and it will stew inside of them that they did something wrong. Whereas Johnny, and if you've been to any of my sessions, you hear about my Johnny stories. I actually had a kid named Johnny who was incredibly, one of the kids that made me think about why I'm still in education, but I learned so very much from. So you have a Johnny and you have the same engagement with Johnny. And the difference is that the child appears as though it didn't make an impact or didn't influence him at all, which actually isn't the case, but that's an assumption we make. So we have to recognize that temperament plays a significant part. And it doesn't matter what temperament the child has. By using these approaches, we are not being helpful and we are not building resiliency. Please stop taking away recess from children. The children who need it the most are the ones who are misbehaving the most. Please stop taking away field trips or special events or occasions from the children who are having a difficult time in terms of behavior. This is not an effective way. And as I mentioned, by trying to make him feel bad, it actually creates a greater gap in the relationship between you and that child. Please hear me when I say this. Stop taking away recess and stop taking away special privileges. Okay, so here's our next perspective that I want you to hold on for, because this is something that you have also been taught in teacher school. All right, so the carrot is the reward. We have been taught in school that when a child pleases you or does something right, that we give them a reward. And I will tell you that in the interim, it works. It totally works. With little kids, if you give them a sticker, oh my goodness, the sticker is like the coolest thing in the world. If you give them a candy, they are super excited by that. If you give them a hand stamp, oh my goodness, I got a hand stamp. But here's the problem. We, again, create foundational skills in brain development. See, little kids, littles, 2-year-olds, okay, 1-year-olds, they come into this world as infants, as newborns and infants. They come into this world ready to learn. They come in this world ready to explore and to engage in the world. And what's amazing about them, just imagine a 2-year-old. Even if you didn't have a 2-year-old of your own, you didn't have a child, or you don't have a child, or if you do, think about your 2-year-old. You know, there's a slide that the child really has been making a concerted effort to get up the steps. And boy, for that 2-year-old, that's like climbing Mount Everest. And the baby finally gets to the top and comes down that slide. And when they hit the bottom, guess what they say? They don't say, look at me. They don't say, teacher, teacher, look what I did. They don't do that. They say, I did. I did it. That's what they say. Because babies and young children are born with the intrinsic desire to learn. And as they accomplish things, they become excited by those successes. And we change the story right around potty training time. We want children to be potty trained. We want to get them out of those diapers, the Pampers, the disposable diapers, right? That's what we want. And so what do? We start to give them rewards and stickers and tokens. And we go, good girl, good job, you went potty. And then the child's intrinsic motivation now shifts to an external motivation, and it becomes about pleasing you. So I get teachers who go, well, what's wrong with that? You know, if I say, let me give you a sticker, and that's going to get them from point A to point B, it's just a sticker. Well, here's the problem. If skills beget skills, and we're understanding brain development, and what happens with brain development, okay? Remember, mirror neurons, brains, foundations for continued life skills and academic skills. We have now just shifted this praise, because that's what this is. We're praising children. And let me tell you what else it sounds like. Good job. This is such a beautiful picture. Oh, look at how smart you are. All of this external praise. And the reason why all this came to be was not only around potty training, but we got a clue that children will respond to that kind of praise. Oh my goodness, I want a sticker too, so I'm going to behave that way, right? It seems completely acceptable and appropriate, absolutely. And does it work? Most of the time. I will tell you that children who were trying to really reach, like the Johnnies, it never works for, because they don't give a crap about your sticker. They don't care about your sticker. They don't care about your hand stamp. They don't care about any of those things, because they've already disconnected. So this is why it's not okay. We have shifted now, and I mentioned that. We have shifted from the internal motivation, the intrinsic motivation to learn. And now we've shifted it. And that what I do should please you. And that what you think of me is more important. Teacher, teacher, do you like my shoes? Teacher, teacher, look what I did. Teacher, teacher, did you see me? Did you see me go across? Teacher, 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 look at me. Am I worthy? Am I good enough? Okay. Couple things wrong with this. The first one, you might think this child is the most incredible kid in the world. The next teacher may not. His mom or his dad may not. So what we're trying to build isn't an external sense of self, but an internal sense of self. That regardless of life circumstances and the people who might look to you and say, you are not worth anything, that I can look beyond those experiences and know the value of my worth. The second thing, skills beget skills. We need to remember this. When they're little kids, you're important to them. The adults are important to them. If you've ever sat and had a mealtime with children, and you're just having a conversation about things. A child says, I got a new puppy. And the children don't often automatically go to, oh, I got a puppy too, to the child who said it. They go, teacher, teacher, I also got a puppy. They want you. They're connected to you. They want to hold your hand. They want to sit next to you. But they get to the point where you then become not as important. Right around third grade, fourth grade in middle school. Who becomes important? Their peers. Their peers become important. That's a natural progression of development. That's just part of them starting to break away from adults so that they can become adults in the world. That's part of what has to happen in life, right? But see, skills beget skills. So we now have gotten them in the experience of looking to you for validation, looking to you for self-worth, looking to you to say that my picture is pretty, that I did good work, that I did a good job, that I did all of those things. And so the brain now is seeking external motivation, external validation. But now peers are important. So then they go, teacher, teacher. Oh no, sorry, rewind that. They now say, Jessica doesn't like my clothes. She doesn't like my hair. They say my pants are stupid. I don't want to ever wear those again. Because we have taught them that process of looking outside themselves. And when it becomes most critical is when they hit this pivotal age where we want them to say, you know what? I like my hair. I like my clothes. You don't have to. And that's okay. So we really have to pay close attention to the methods that we use to get children to do what we want them to do. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get children to behave accordingly without using tokens, rewards, special privileges, or even things like the red card, blue card, or even programs where you report to parents in real time. Those apps that you report to parents in real time, that they're misbehaving is completely unacceptable. There is no way you can build trust with a child if you are reporting to their parents all day long about whether they are on task or not, behaving or not. Think about it from an adult perspective. If you and I work together in a classroom in some fantasy world where there are two teachers in a classroom, and that there were a couple, instances where our boss had to have a conversation with you, and the entire day I was messaging her and letting her know whether you were on point or not. It's not a comfortable experience. And I don't care if you're 4, you're 40, you're 5, or you're 50. Doesn't matter. It's still the experience of not being trusted and not having a trusting relationship. Okay, so we got through two pretty significant perspectives. The first one is that punishment doesn't help children learn self-regulation, learn what to do instead. And it really doesn't help children develop a strong sense of worth. Rewards, which is the same coin but a different side, also doesn't support children's resiliency or their intrinsic motivation to learn and want to do things because they're the appropriate things to do, but rather how to get a reward. Now, I will tell you, I could go on and on and on, and there's an extensive part of our in-person training where we really explore these two concepts because it is embedded, historically embedded in education to use both of these approaches. But I have to tell you that neither of them are effective, because if they were effective, then we wouldn't have to continue to use them. So these glasses here, what I want you to understand here is that all of our experiences in life and our temperament is what creates the lens we see the world through. So if you come from a very emotionally safe environment and someone makes a statement to you about your behavior, your experience may be as an opportunity for you to be reflective and to learn something. If you come from a hostile environment or an environment where there might be some inconsistencies, maybe some traumatic experiences, the lens that you see the world through may be that it is an unsafe place to be. So having the same kind of feedback to a child who has that experience in life, they may not see it as an opportunity, but as a threat. We have to begin to recognize that every person has a different lens that they see the world through. And instead of having expectations where everyone sees through the same lens, we have to begin to recognize and form empathy and understanding, and to help children be able to be successful in the experience of school, because school is a microcosm of our society. What you do, what you say, how you engage, who you are in the presence of children is all building the foundations for who you hope that they will be as a contributing member of our society.